What's going on, guys? This is Miasin. So this article, of course, published by Akira, the actual king at this point, I don't even have to mention it anymore, is actually going to be covering an interesting staple that is really seeing a lot of competitive play in the OCG right now, and that card is Artemate Slay, a normal spell card that is actually pretty terrifying. That essentially allows you to send a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard to target one monster your opponent controls with the same card type, so Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, Pendulum, or Link, shuffle it into the deck, and your opponent can't activate monster effects in response to this card's activation. So it kind of acts as a Nadir servant and like a baby Super Poly in a way, and it is not once per turn, so that's kind of interesting. And this article will, of course, be going into details, even though I already made a card review on this card, I think a few weeks or months ago. Anyways, before this video starts, make sure you like and subscribe. Check me out on Twitch and Instagram, and now let's jump right into it. So, of course, I already went into the intro, so we can already jump into the fusion monsters that you can send with this card. The first one is also the most popular one. It is Elder Entity Entis. So very straightforward, you can target something like Destiny or Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. Your opponent cannot respond with the Phoenix Enforcer, so the card will be shuffled back into the extra deck, which is actually pretty scary because you're not destroying the card, and it's not going into the graveyard. So very nice against a few cards that actually can't be destroyed by card effects, or that float or something like that. Phoenix Enforcer would be the best example. So you shuffle it back and then destroy another card. So in other words, your card is a spell card that you can use right away as like kind of like a nice board-breaking card going second to also deal with a second card right after. And that is the most important recurrent theme with board-breaking cards. You want to trade like 1 for 2. You don't really want to trade 1 for 1. That's not how you break boards going second, because in a hand of like 6 cards, if your opponent makes like 6 negates, then you're using every single card in your hand just to trade even with your opponent. Your opponent will most likely still have cards, and then you're gonna die to your opponent's follow-up. Obviously, that was like the worst example I could have given, but sometimes it actually takes multiple cards to even break one negate, and sometimes you also break and you draw redundant cards, and that's the reason why having pretty fantastic cards like that is really, really good. And the fact that your opponent can't respond is also even bigger, because if your opponent has like an Omni Negate, it's still not going to protect him from the fact that you can destroy or get rid of another card right after. Now, Elder Entity Entis was obviously the best example, but there are still some other cards that you can also send, such as the Fossil King, I think Skull Knight or something like that. And I forgot the name of this card, but I think this destroys a monster, and this is a spell or trap. So yeah, Fossil Warrior Skull Knight and Fossil Warrior Skull Dragon destroy a monster and spell and trap respectively. And also, we have Branded Tearlaments that is considered the second best deck in the OCG right now, so being able to send their big fusion monster, well, not even, that's actually, I think, the level 5 monster, return it back to the extra deck, not destroy, so it doesn't trigger the effect to mill 5 cards, and then you can use Entis to destroy the Tearlaments. Meta Noise is absolutely fantastic value, so you don't even have to like worry about playing hand traps and stuff like that, and you can draw this as your 6th card. So that's just something that is so good when people don't have like, I don't know, Solemn Judgment and Imperial Order, because only spells and traps can respond to this card. Now, one very important thing that you have to take into consideration is that if your opponent has something like a Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, for example, and like any spell or trap, you can actually chain the spell and trap to your Artemate Slay, and then chain the Hot Red to target your Artemate Slay, and then that card will obviously get negated, because your opponent can still, you know, react to the window, like the overall chain of Artemate Slay. So it's not like your opponent can't activate monsters effects at all, but rather in response very specifically to this card. So if your opponent is using a response to like his own card, then that's a different story. So that is still something that you have to keep in mind, because against Despia, that can come up, because your opponent can go like chain Branded in red to your Artemate Slay, and then chain Mirror Jade to banish a card you control. And that might actually put you in a little bit of a shitty position, because the Branded in red will obviously trigger, the Mirror Jade will trigger, etc. So you have to time your cards correctly. However, it does prevent your opponent from having the perfect timing and going Guardian Chimera and stuff like that. So your opponent might actually be forced to summon Masquerade or Despian Cortis. Now for the Synchro Monsters, there aren't that many technically that you can play that are like super broken, but Wind Pegasus at Ignister is my personal favorite one. It is reactive, however, the impact is slightly better than the one of Elder Entity Entis, because Entis destroys a card, whereas Wind Pegasus at Ignister shuffles back a card your opponent controls into the deck. So the reason why this can be pretty nice is because it could be an out to El Shaddai Winda. So let's just say my opponent has like El Shaddai Winda with Borreload Savage Dragon. I can go Artemate Slay, send the Savage by sending the Wind Pegasus Ad Ignister, and then basically normal summon anything, crash on the Winda, and then trigger the Ad Ignister, shuffle back the Winda, and that's it, that's all. Just 2 cards were able to make it so your opponent lost 2 cards. It's not too bad, but it's not like the best. It's not like sending Elder Entity Entis, which is just straight up a 1-for-2 trade. This is rather like a 2-for-2 trade, but at least you're getting rid of extremely annoying cards. Now, Omega is definitely a card that you have to respect because you can shuffle back cards from the graveyard, from both players' graveyard, by shuffling back the Omega from the graveyard to the extra deck. So, by sending a card like Omega, not only, again, are you outing cards like Borreload Savage Dragon, but also you get to shuffle back extremely terrifying cards like Fairy Tail Snow. And we are definitely seeing a lot of decks right now, combo decks that are playing cards like Baroness de Fleur, as well as Fairy Tail Snow. So if you're able to trade 1 for 2, that's actually pretty freaking awesome. And the final card that you can send that is actually really, really good would be Herald of Arclight. However, this only really applies to either Ritual decks or decks that play the Illusion of Chaos Magician Souls package in the deck. So again, a lot of combo decks, and I actually want to say that this might be one of the biggest interactions for us in the TCG, even though it's not really popular in the OCG, because you don't really want to play Magician Souls in like every single deck because it's like an extender, it makes you lose to Maxi more, whereas in the TCG we just don't care about that. We just want to combo and draw cards and explode and make negates, so the rules are completely different here than they are over there. And yeah, so I hope that the explanation for Synchro and Xyz was pretty good, because the last option that you have is ridiculously simple. All it is just Link. So that is something that will unfortunately require you to play 1 bad card essentially in your deck. However, it is a Takatomborg and not a Garnet, so if you draw it, you're not screwed. It's just that you'd rather not draw it. So if your opponent has a Link monster, your Artemate Slay can send your opponent's Link monster from the, well, shuffle back again into the extra deck. And this time you're sending the Link 4 Evil Twin monster, which can banish itself from the graveyard to foolish your deck for, well, your deck or your field for, or your hand, I think, for any Evil Twin monster. And the only main deck Evil Twin monster in the game is this one, which is Evil Twin Kisekil and Leela. And that would be able to send 1 card your opponent controls without targeting, which is ridiculously good. So, very scary negate that allows you to out, I don't know, untargetable, undestructible cards. Something that even Wind Pegasus Ad Ignister and Elder Entity Entis can't do. And something that Artemate Slay cannot do either, because it also targets. So, a little bit of a really nice explosive effect that you get with this card, but again, it does come with the disadvantage of having to play a not super great card. Overall, pretty good. So in conclusion, like I said, it is very similar to Nadir's Servant and Dogmatica Punishment, because they really do trade 1 for 2, so you're using 1 card and you're making your opponent lose 2 cards. And the available choices are definitely indeed limited, because we haven't really covered any good Xyz and Fusion. Well, no, sorry, not Fusion. Fusion is broken. It was Fusion and Pendulum monsters that you can send. For the most part, there's practically nothing. However, the other kind of cards are so ridiculously good, and a lot of people are summoning, you know, a bunch of fusions, links, and synchros, so it still makes it a very, very good side deck option. But again, I don't necessarily recommend this card to be played in the main deck. I really think it is a little too specific, and it is just only really good when you're going second. So yeah, definitely perfect in the side, not in the main. Anyways, that's pretty much all I had to say for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.